call the meeting to order. We'll start with roll call. Christina Shark.
Here.
Dave Walbrenner.
Here.
Jeremy Weller.
Here.
Brian Jones.
Here.
Becky Engel.
Here.
And Jan Wietrich.
Here.
Next item, adoption of agenda and declaration of quorum.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, citizens speak. So we now open our citizen speak portion of the agenda. We would invite anyone in the audience who's completed a green comment card or others who would like to address the board to step up to the podium, state your name and address so that our board secretary can capture it for our minutes. We ask that you limit your comment to 3 minutes to allow sufficient time for all those interested in addressing the board and to ensure all other agenda items receive attention in an efficient manner. Please know that while the board is always pleased to hear from citizens who would like to address them, we're not able to engage in conversation. If you'd like to further engage on any specific topic, you can always contact board members before or after meetings, or you can find our contact information on the district website. So I have one green comment card here from Mark Lay.
My address is 1502 Hamilton Street in Ottumwa. Okay, hello. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Mark Lay. I am a small business owner here in Ottumwa. I do wear some other hats within the community, but I do come here tonight as a small business owner. I come before the board this evening with a few questions concerning some of the contracted work that has been done or is currently being done this past season within the Ottumwa Community School District and their properties. The first item I'm curious about, what is the school board or more the school district's policy on bid letting? How many bids, for example, how many bids have to come in on a project, history of contractors, things of that nature. I'd also be interested in knowing where and when that bid information is made available to the public and or to local contractors. For example, what forms of media are being used to put that information out, time frames for bids, things of that nature. I'm also curious, does the school district have a policy on hiring local before out-of-town businesses? If so, what would be the criteria for being considered a local business? I'm interested in what is the criteria for a business to perform work for the school district? For example, what's the professional history? Does that looked into any legal concerns, things like that? Just that kind of information. Are these contracts, once they've been let out and been given to a company, are they made available for the general public to view? Now, why am I curious about these items? A few months ago, I received a phone call asking why my business, for those you don't know, I have a small business here in town, a landscaping company, why my business hadn't had any bids put in for the work that's being done in the district this year. My answer was, what bids, what work? I wasn't aware of any bid letting going on within the district for for this season concerning landscape, hardscape projects. Now, if I missed this information, I'm going to guess it was probably sometime in 2022 that the bids would have been let out. Being put out to the public, then that would be on me personally. But I feel within my school district that I do try to keep up on what's going on. And personally, I hadn't seen anything on the website, the Ottumwa School website, or any social media platform, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. With information that is easily accessible about bid letting for projects for this year or any other year, especially concerning landscape or hardscape. As a local business owner, a parent of 5 Ottumwa alumni, and a current 6th child going through the school district, I find it strange, odd, a little bit aggravating that a business, to my knowledge, did not exist in our community a year ago, received possibly the largest contract, at least to my knowledge, for landscaping that has been let out for the Ottumwa School District in several years. Not one established, to my knowledge, again, local company that I'm aware of received any landscape, hardscape contracts for the school district. I do understand that not all projects that are needing accomplished by the district can be done by local businesses, mostly because the projects are not within the scope of expertise of businesses in this area. But it seems to me that the school district would be best served by reaching out to well-known, established, locally owned businesses that have been shown capable of accomplishing these projects first before settling on an out-of-town, out-of-state, or possibly a brand-new business to the area. With that being said, I would like to find at some point some clarification on discussing that with some of you guys or whoever I need to talk to about that, along with the other concerns I did discuss just a minute ago. So that kind of concludes what I have to say. I do thank you guys for your time, for listening to me, and I do thank you for your service to our district. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Next item, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, board priority, create a positive learning and working culture. We have an early resignation incentive.
Yeah, John's gonna, if you want to join me, John, for this. What I guess we're seeking from the board or recommending is, there's probably two components. Is looking, we did last year where we had, and it worked very well for us, to put out an incentive to let us know early if you were planning on not coming back the following year. And John, I don't want to tell I think we had 12 individuals that participated in that.
Yes, last year it was 12.
Yeah, 12.
Yep.
And we offered at that time $3,000 in December. And then we also, January 6th, we offered $2,000 as an early incentive. What it did for us is it really helped those scenarios where they knew they were leaving for whatever reason, maybe moving out of the state or, you know, just for whatever reason, being able to hire early. Because if you don't have that incentive, then there's probably not a lot of incentive to maybe let the district know until April, June even, that you're leaving the district. So we'd like to ask the board to take action on passing that, approving that again. But what we're proposing this year is just doing it in December and doing it just one time. And it'd be for $3,000 instead of having the two different times where we did it. What the question becomes too, because this can get kind of confusing, is are we, and I'd like this discussion to happen too with the board, is I'm recommending that this year we don't offer, again, early retirement. And my rationale for that is that it seems counterproductive to offer early retirement when you're struggling, all districts are struggling to hire and fill positions. I think it's something that on a yearly basis should be reviewed. And we kind of last year as a board talked about that's what we would do this year, is review it and see if we want to do it. So I guess I want feedback from the board on that issue, and then also feedback on what you would like to do with the early incentive. So I'll just open it up to the board. John, anything you wanted to add, John, that I forgot?
No, I don't think, I was just going to mention, last year, the December 1st and January deadline is we had 11 of the 12 that participated do it by that December 1st deadline. So the secondary deadline didn't really apply to anybody. Most people made up their mind on the early one. So that played a part in just going to the one date.
I have a question, John. As I was reading through it, it said that anybody who had already told the district they were leaving wouldn't be eligible for this. Has somebody already told you they're leaving?
I don't think anybody's notified us that they're retiring at the end. And they'd have to finish out the school year. So
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's notified us that they're retiring at the end of this school year.
Okay, because,
Right.
all right, well, I just know of some that are, and I thought, well, they should be allowed. If they've already told you, they should get the money too.
Right. I don't think we've had any. We had a few loopholes last year that we wanted to, I guess, clear up.
Okay.
One was that we had some individuals that did let us know early and then put in for it again after that. But then also, which we did. And then the other one, John, was that administrators, we had some administrators put in for that were retiring, that we chose, we just are going to have it for certified staff.
And the other one we added this year was that anybody that was provided a hiring bonus to join the
Yes.
district
Thank you.
would not be eligible for this if they decided to leave. And we set it so that we started doing the hiring bonuses a couple years ago. So anybody that would have got one, I think they're still, we asked for a 3-year commitment, so we're still within that 3 years. So we wanted to exclude that group. And as far as anybody letting us know about retirement, this is just for certified staff. And I'm certain that we haven't had any certified employees notify us that they were going to retire or resign at the end of the year. I think we had one in one of the support groups, but this wouldn't apply to them.
Okay.
And tell me if I'm saying this right, Jen. I think your question, Becky, is like, we would always allow somebody now to tell us, even if they told us already that they would still qualify for it. It was after the date, right, that we had some people that said, I've decided to retire and I would like the bonus. Does that make sense? So like in February or something, they
Yeah,
said.
the way I read it was
Yeah.
that if they had already told you right now, then they would not get the bonus. And maybe
Oh.
I read it wrong.
Yeah, I don't.
And I guess that's usually how we'd worded it. I think we worded it that way last year, but that wouldn't apply to anybody in this year.
Yeah.
I guess I would say this is kind of a tough decision. I know, and I would think that if it was something I would ask if we do decide to do this. I know several months ago I'd looked and seen what our years of service with a lot of our teachers, and I think we have a lot that, when you look at 22, 23 and up, there, it looks like there's quite a few that could probably go any time. And so I'm wondering if you did something like this, if you, just because I think that we should probably give the opportunity, because I think with the shortage of teachers across the United States, try to fill those positions, because I think that's only going to grow. But then the other thing is, do you put a limit, or can you put a limit and say, so the first 10 or 15, so we don't get hit with like a 20-some teacher retirement in 1 year? Because I know when I looked through there was a lot of teachers with a lot of years that was over that 22, 23 mark last time I'd looked, and it looks like, and I don't know what the goal is for every teacher. I mean, what their years they want to get to, but it seems like to me there was a lot of them that was close.
Brian, most of them want to hit the rule of 88.
That seems to be the largest factor. As far as the structure of the program, the board has flexibility to limit it, to set the rules for it. That it can be whatever the board decides. So there's that flexibility there. Now, the one thing to note with employees is any school district employee, when they do retire and they're of retirement age, 55 or older, they're able to stay on the district insurance, whether or not there's an early retirement incentive or not. Now, the incentive would just provide funds for it, but everybody has that option to stay on until they hit age 65, which is always something concerning when you leave a job at 60. If you have to go get private insurance, it's probably very expensive. So the benefit for them to remain on our group policy at the rates that are already in place exists whether there's an early retirement incentive or not. So those employees still have access to that, even if there's not an incentive to have them leave early, perhaps.
So is a common number 30 years? That's not a common number, really?
It depends on when you started
Yeah.
teaching.
Right.
You know, how old you were then, and then, because you have to add your age and the number of years you taught to get to that
Okay.
88. And
So
some,
would you say most are over 30 years of service when they,
oh,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I know I had 38
okay.
when I went. I planned to go longer, but
Well, if you think about it, like the rule of 88, if you graduate and when you're 22, then you would take that, and how do you get to the rule of 88,
Right,
which would
yeah.
be 36 years
Yeah.
probably, yeah.
I was thinking when they get to 30 years, then they're probably saying, I'm out or close to out. So, and I know there was a lot of numbers within 6 or 7 years of that, so.
Right. Yep. Other thoughts are, I guess there's two issues really. We're not asking to take action on early retirement, but we want to get your feedback on that, but also taking action on the early incentive.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense to offer an early retirement benefit right now when we're trying to retain people, so.
Okay.
But I do think it's a good idea to offer the early notice incentive. I know that's helped in the past few years. We haven't been scrambling to fill teachers like a lot of other districts have. And I think that this early notification is a lot of the
Okay.
reason why.
One thing we're going to try this year too, if we do this, is that I think we'll have some successes. They've really increased the amount you can make. And Becky, I'm looking at you and Jan, is that how much you can make, you can now make over $50,000 and still get your IPERS. So we're going to reach out to individuals. Would you like to work half-time? Would you like to work, you know? So, Jan, don't roll it out, Jan.
Would she have to give up this gig?
No, she wouldn't. She
Oh,
could,
lucky you.
but we think we might have some success because a lot of teachers may not want to retire completely, but they may want to teach a few classes, and that might fill a need that we have. So,
There's no other questions. I'd be looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the early resignation notice.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, board priority financial stewardship. We've got a revenue bond action item.
You don't want to read that whole thing?
No, I'm not going to read that whole thing.
This is the board step. We sold the bonds. We talked about that at the last meeting. So this is kind of getting all of our paperwork in order. So we approve the paying agent, bond registrar, transfer agent, paying agent. There's an agreement, tax exemption certificate, and approval of the continuing disclosure certificate. So this is the standard practice. It's in there in the packet if you want to read it. It's lengthy, but it's just a lot of the documents that go along to finalize the bond sale. So I'd welcome any questions.
I make a motion that we approve the 2023 revenue bonds as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, FRK architect agreement.
Dave's going to review that with the board.
Yes, sir. We are working with FRK as part of our Phase 2 visioning for OHS, and that would include our CTE, our fine arts, our family consumer science, our admin suite, and I'm missing one area off the top of my head, but there's 5 areas that we're working with to create a vision for our next step there at OHS. And we are working with them on an hourly basis. We don't feel like we would need them for the full process. We feel some of it will need to let out for bids, so the science rooms, labs, but other areas we'll be able to get the vision and work locally with our own craftsmen.
And I think it's going to, we'll come back to the board and share out, the architects will come, our staff will come and share out how the process went, how it evolved, how it changed from what they thought maybe they wanted. Like, this company we're working with has done a lot of new schools. They've done also renovations, and so they've done science labs, they've done family consumer science, they've done it all, art rooms and so forth. And so we're gaining a lot of information or a lot of ideas from this group too. So you'll get a chance to see what that is, probably, I would say in a couple months, probably.
Yes, some of our teachers are taking up the opportunity to go visit other schools to check out science labs and family consumer science rooms.
Make a motion to pass the FRK architect agreement.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, Union Street retaining wall.
Go ahead.
Yes, along Union Street, as you can see that the need for that replacement of the wall there. So this would be our last phase of that reconstruction of that area. And the plan is to be able to mow along that one edge, but also leave the one area, the prairie grass area natural, and not disturb that.
So Mark spoke earlier. Is this a time that I can ask for some of those answers to those questions that he had?
Sure.
Since this, involves the hardscape project?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Some of the things that we've done in the past, and with one of these projects, is we called out to Earl May. We asked for recommendations of contractors that they had. And to be honest, at the time when we called, we didn't have that many that were able to complete a project of this size. But we're always welcoming contractors. So if they contact the school, we will definitely get them in our queue. As when we have projects come up, we'll reach out to those contractors because we try to get 2 to 3 estimates depending on the size of the project. If it's a capital project, obviously that goes into closed bids and sealed bids. But some of the smaller ones, between 10,000 and 80,000, we're usually trying to get 2 to 3 bids.
Yeah. And I know, as you all know, Mark is a good friend of mine, so, but I know he's done work for the district before, so I would have thought he would have been in the queue. And some of these big projects could have been broken down, I think, into some smaller projects, so we could use more of our local business owners.
We can
Oh, go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
we can definitely look at that in the future. I actually gave him my card so we can meet next week and we can get him his name and what area he focuses on. So
Because he's asked me questions, and I said, I don't know. He goes, but you're on the school board, and I said, I still don't know. I'm sorry.
absolutely.
You can always ask.
We want to keep it as local as possible.
Yeah.
We have, I think the board has seen, we've put a lot of energy into trying to keep as much local as we possibly can. And I know Mark as well, and I would love to work with Mark. I think we struggled to find people that were interested in doing these type of landscaping projects. So there aren't a lot out there, to be honest, but we'd love to work with him, and we'll reach out to him. And I think that if we could, landscaping-wise, we'll have some future projects too that we'll put out for bid, and we'll make sure he knows about that. And so, yeah.
Mike, what is the threshold for required to bid? Is it 50,000?
Right. John? 25, yeah.
25 has to be
yeah.
bid? Okay.
Well, it's not like sealed bids, it's to go out and make good.
Right.
Competitive
We have
bid.
to get
Oh,
2 or
okay.
3 bids, so, yeah.
Okay.
So another question. I know it's been years ago and social media has changed things a lot, but do we post this stuff out? I know it used to be in the newspapers and things like that. Do we post anything anywhere on our website or Facebook or anything like that to let contractors know that they can submit?
Not some of our smaller ones, but we're trying to gather our names and those contractors who are interested in working with the district so that we have that list that we can go down and call and contact.
And I seen something, I think, last week. Didn't
Yeah.
we just push something out last week for contractors?
Yeah, we're
that wanna-
refining that a little bit. I think there was some confusion on the intent of it, so we're clarifying that, that was meant for the contractors more so of larger.
But the purpose of that was to try to stay local and get local people if they were interested, so we could get them on the list.
Right.
And we'll send that. I think, Dave, to your question, what we try to do on smaller projects is probably set anybody that we know is in that area of expertise. We try to send out to 7 or 8, and we may only hear back from 1 or 2, but we always try to send out. Do we always send out to 7 and 8? Sometimes there aren't 7 or 8 people out there that do that type of work, but so we try to do that with our projects.
Do we have anywhere on our district website where we can post upcoming projects that,
Yeah, we can
that
do
way it's out there, anybody
Yeah.
can see it, anybody can check anytime.
Yep.
And then I still like calling people and saying, hey, this is out there, because
Yeah.
not everybody's going to check our
Right.
website every day to
Right.
see if something applies. But at least then we can say, everything
was
gets
there.
posted, everybody has a chance to look at it.
Yep,
I think that would be a good idea.
we can do that.
But Dave, do you think it's fair to say if anybody asks us these types of questions, because I've had this question come up a couple times as well since I've been on the board, that we can just tell people, call the central office, get put on the list of contractors.
Yes.
And then when a job comes up that they might be eligible for, they might hear about it that way.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a good answer.
And is it safe to say, though, that most of our landscaping stuff we've done over the last couple of years, like, we've done that in-house, haven't we?
Well, some of it we have, but the big projects we have not.
Right.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
the big ones, but a
Yeah.
lot of the smaller stuff.
Yeah, some of,
We've-
yeah,
we've
for sure,
done
yeah, some of the
in-house.
smaller stuff.
Yeah, and I think just break, like Becky said, breaking some of it up. So I know on like a couple of the projects we had, I mean, we probably did several $100,000 worth of landscaping, I think, this year. And so I know that like the landscaping Mark could do, but like the one big project where they done the retaining walls and stuff like that, this company did. So that's not something that he can do. He don't do that part of it. But if you had it broke up, if you could break the project up and still, to me, the project would go faster if it was, able to be broke up, and Mark could do the landscaping part, and then these guys could do like the retaining walls. Because I know when I drove by several times, they were struggling out here getting this wall out up here by the high school, and they were, I didn't see jackhammers, I just seen sledgehammers. And they were going at it pretty good. So, yeah, and Mark's a good guy in this town and done a lot of work in this town. And I just know we've gave out a lot of landscaping dollars over the past year or two, and I think most of it's went to this one contractor. So just getting Mark involved, I think, would be great.
Yeah.
Well, Top Line is a local company, aren't they?
Yeah,
I think they're really new, though, I think.
They are
but-
new.
Which is
Yeah.
okay, too, but,
Yeah.
I mean, giving everybody a chance, but.
Yeah.
But in fairness, if you have insurance and you comply with the bid requirements, I mean, it's still a low bid. I mean,
right.
Right, so
we
on
really
this-
don't have the authority to start handpicking.
No, right, I
some
understand.
of
So
this
like
stuff.
on this $40,000 project, Dave, you said we try to get, so, because there's not a lot of landscaping companies, and there's probably not somebody from Des Moines gonna come for 40,000. Did we have more than one bid on this project, or do we always even get more than one bid on some of them?
We don't always get more than one bid on projects. It depends
Especially the
on
smaller ones.
the
right?
availability and what they've got going on currently.
Right,
But we can definitely build that list, and we'll reach out to them all and give everyone a fair
Yeah, and
opportunity.
the question was asked earlier in the meeting of what power we have to designate picking a local business. To my recollection, it's 2%. The bid has to be within 2% to,
As far as discretion,
yeah.
Dave, do you know if,
I don't remember seeing a policy on local.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a policy. Like I said, we don't have a policy.
Why don't you come up here, Dan?
You can put one in, but we don't have one.
Yeah.
When it's a smaller project, the board has the discretion when awarding bids. It should mostly be based on cost, but there's other factors that the board can take into consideration, and that's pretty broad, so the board has a lot of leeway in making a choice. It should mostly be based on cost, but if there's been other experiences or a local preference or things like that, the board has some discretion in awarding bids, but it does have to be careful about awarding a bid that's significantly higher than a
Yeah.
lower bid. We want to be good stewards with the monies, but the language does allow a little flexibility, so in case there's some extenuating circumstances, things like that. But we're not nailed to a certain percentage or anything like that.
Okay.
And I think all the board's asking in the future, we'll definitely reach out to Mark, and he'll be on our list, and then if he's a low bidder, great. Yeah.
And not just Mark, other.
No,
other-
right,
Yeah.
yeah. We have tried reaching out. There's, again,
There are not many.
There's not many,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
We tried Albia, we tried a lot of places to get people to bid on them, and so, yeah.
One other thought I wanted to add is just that we have had some turnover in the Buildings and Grounds Department with our previous facility individual leaving and a couple years before that. So sometimes those lists of contractors get lost. They kind of maintain them. So I know Dave has been working on building a list of contractors so we can make sure that we have a longer, a group of them so we know who's out there and maybe who's started a new business and who's left. So, yeah.
Well, to get back on topic.
No,
that's-
you're fine.
That's fine.
I make a motion that we approve the Union Street retaining wall bid.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, central office relocation.
Yeah, we thought this would be a good time to come back to the board. We had the conversation about if the board liked the idea of us looking at having central office, moving it from our current location to Evans, and there seemed to be a lot of support for that. Now tonight, we can kind of show you what the design could look like at Evans, some cost items. And so really, there's two agenda items here. One is for the board to take action on the central office relocation, but really within that is cost associated with that. And then also taking action on giving basically approval for us to put our current central office up for sale. So that would be the other thing we would be asking. So Dave's got a presentation for you as far as the central office, what it could look like, and then we'll just open it up for questions.
There we go. As you can see, the parking lot which you've already approved, that will be in place this fall yet. We envision the front step area. We'll spruce that up. Additional signage about along the road. We will be relocating our current sign that we have at central office out to Evans, the new area. This view would be as you're sitting from the administrative assistant's desk looking towards Ferry Street. So envision Ferry Street through those doors. And then the door to your left would be a door into Evans' main hallway there with that. And we're working with Yates and Yates on that door there. This is a layout that we've talked about each of the sections, the areas, and they've agreed to. These would be 3/4 walls. They would not go all the way to the ceiling. There would be some additional wiring involved for lights and whatnot, but mainly we're looking at the additional walls with drywall, and then we'll rehab the current existing walls to meet each of those departments' needs there. So with that said, along the reception area, you'll see a staff room right there on the lower left of it. We are actually working with Evans Middle School, Mr. Davis, about there's a room that's currently right behind that, and they're looking at needing to enlarge an area. So we're looking at having a doorway there and potentially looking at having another office area there. That potentially could be our welcome center if we get to that point. But as you can see, all the areas are identified, and the hallways will be rehabbed too. The lockers will be removed, and we'll have drywall in place of those. Any questions on the layout before I move downstairs?
So they're going to have, the walls won't be finished for each office? It will just be halfway, or?
There'll be
3/4?
three-quarter walls, not all the way to the ceiling. They'll be finished drywall, paint, fixtures, whatnot, doorway. But due to the HVAC system in that building, to save cost, if we put complete walls, then we'd have to revamp the whole HVAC system.
Okay.
This is the downstairs in the basement. This is one of the conference rooms. This is, if you remember right, there's a hallway that runs in the basement. This is with the wall removed. Those are the pillars that are along the hallway. This would be a large conference room for our professional development if we would need it. This is the FCS area. It's actually got potentially for 2 conference rooms or 2 areas in it. Obviously, this is the front area where the classroom is. And then the rear area would be where currently the lab kitchens are. The lab kitchens, we're working with Evans also to actually, it will return to where it once was. So the kitchen will go into its original spot, sounds like, on the first floor, which is the art room. Some preliminary costs for this. We're looking at, this would be done by our own craftsmen. And we're looking about $100,000 total for the budget to rehab the upstairs, and then also the demo the lower level area too. We're estimating 6 to 8 weeks on completion, and hopefully they'll be putting up walls this week. Any questions on any of the central office area? All right. With that, we would like to time the sale of our current facility as we move out, potentially, hopefully we'll have a buyer lined up, so it'd be a smooth transition from one building to the other.
If there's no questions, I'd be looking for a motion.
Make a motion for the central office relocation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, future property sale.
And this one, it's just kind of what Dave mentioned at the end there. We just want to get the board's blessing to start the process of disposing of the current central office. Obviously, we wouldn't go anywhere until everything's all said and done. And the process to dispose of school property is several steps, including a public hearing and whatnot. But we just wanted to get the board's okay to begin that process, start working with a realtor, maybe get a formal appraisal, although we have had an appraisal of the building that values it actually above what we bought it for several years ago. So we should be able to recoup most of the investment made in that building, and then it'll also help fund what Dave just shared, the renovations at the current building. So we're not outlaying any current funds. We would just be using some of the proceeds from that building sale. So, anything else, Mike?
I don't think so, John. I think, what we're hoping, and obviously based on the cost, is that it will be a cost savings by us doing this, by selling our building and what we're going to put into our current, so we can use those funds for other projects. So that's the goal, and it seems very realistic that it will be a significant cost savings. So,
John, are we thinking we'll be somewhere in the range of the $500,000 mark for the other building?
I think that some of the numbers, the proposals
Yeah.
we've had have been between 6 and 7.
right,
6 and 7?
600,000 and 700,000. Yeah.
But a lot of it depends on what commercial entities are looking for it, or if, someone wants to turn it into apartments. There's a lot of possibilities, but the couple realtors we spoke to have spoken highly of the building, and it's been kept in good shape, so it is a good facility, and it's a nice location. It's just not ideal for a school central office, as you all know, kind of hidden away.
Looking for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the preparation for a future property sale.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. Next item, superintendent report.
Thanks, Morgan. Have several things for the board tonight. One is, just an FYI, is that our bids for our competition gym are due this Thursday. So I'll certainly let the board know how those turn out. We're excited. It seems like we have a lot of people interested in bidding. You never know how many you're going to get until that day, but we're optimistic, I guess. Second thing I have is I wanted to get the board's feedback. I'm contemplating maybe opening this door, and I wanted to see if the board would like me to open this door, is considering if we have administrators that want to coach, if you would see any issue with us allowing that to happen. And I'll give you the pros and cons of it that I can think of. Some pros would be, if it's a passion area for an administrator, allows them to go into that area. A different connection with kids, get viewed in a different role than as an administrator. What you're seeing in a lot of probably smaller school districts for sure is just that avenue being open to administrators. And as I've been kind of watching that, there seems to be a lot of benefit to that. We wouldn't be doing it because we can't find coaches. That wouldn't be the main reason we do it. And we also wouldn't require it. But if we had administrators that wanted to coach, you'd probably do it where it was lower level. You would not do it you probably wouldn't have somebody do varsity and so forth. Because the cons are time commitment, they're busy people. How would that look to staff if they can't designate their energies towards their school and so forth? So those would be the issues we'd look at if we start allowing this. We'd make sure those are non-issues. But I just wanted to get the feedback from the board, if you like that idea, that we explore that. If we have an administrator that wants to coach, should we allow that? We probably would not pay additional stipends, a coaching stipend for that, because you're already under administrative contract, but it would be if we had an administrator that wanted to do that. So thoughts, questions?
I think I would be in favor for it. I know a couple years ago or a few years ago, we had one that wanted to do some softball stuff, but couldn't because of the administration position, so, yeah.
I didn't know it was a rule that you couldn't, so I'm okay with it. I think our coaching pool is smaller than our teaching pool, so I'd be okay with it.
Okay.
I think I would be okay, like, lower level
Right,
admin.
right.
I wouldn't support the secondary
Oh, okay.
admin.
Okay.
Because of the time commitment. And first and foremost, we need them in the buildings, not leaving for an event at 1 o'clock on a Thursday or Friday or, I would support it like a lower level.
Okay. What about the scenario, like, I actually have some secondary that are interested in doing this, and this is why I ask, is where you have more than one administrator in a building, it's a little bit easier to be able to break away than if there's just one administrator in a building. For example, if you had a middle school person that wanted to do 7th grade basketball or 7th grade football or something like that, is that something you'd be open to?
You would have to convince me.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm fine with it. You look back 15 years ago, it was pretty common practice, and I think it worked pretty well, so
Okay,
I don't have any issue with it.
okay. Anybody, any other thoughts?
I support it.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks, I appreciate the feedback. And the next thing I have is our busing contract is up at the end of this year. And so what we'd like to do is, before we put our bid together, is we'd like to form a committee, and a committee I would love to see a couple board members if you'd like to serve on that committee. I think I've talked a little bit to Jan, and she, I think, would have an interest. But if we could have one more board member, and it would be a committee made up of administrators, some of our staff as well, to really form what do we want in this new policy. And honestly, one of the things that I'm going to ask this committee to look at is what is our policy right now on busing, and do we want to continue with that policy? And here's what I mean by that is right now we bus basically everybody. So if you're 20 feet from the school, you can get on a bus and we will bus you 20 feet. And so half mile, we have a lot of individuals that ride a bus right now that have less than a half mile to walk to school. And what a lot of districts have looked at, and I'm not saying in any way I would do it to the extreme, but the state rule is 2 miles for elementary, 3 miles for secondary. I'm not saying we'd want to look at anything like that, but we may want to look at, once you see the data, does it make a lot of sense for us to be busing kids less than a half a mile or, even a mile? I think part of the reason our community is used to that, and it's legitimate, is we don't have a lot sidewalks in some areas, so it's not safe to walk in certain areas. I think that's changed some, like next summer, the city hopefully will be putting in sidewalks at Liberty all the way down to Casey's, those type of things. But that, I think, is a legitimate concern that the committee would look at. So that I would empower this group to look at that. We have silly scenarios now where I think I'd have to look it up, but 150 kids, high school kids, take the bus from Wilson to the high school. I don't know if that's necessary or not, and it does pose issues for us, and we just have a lot of that actually lead to more busing issues for parents and more frustration for parents because it affects our timing and affects, so they're going to look at all that and then put together a bid for our bid letting to put out, and probably, I think I want to put it out in January, early enough where we can we can look at it and so forth as a board. So thoughts, questions on that? Do you think it's a good idea to look at that type of thing? And if anybody's interested in volunteering for it too.
I think it's definitely a good idea. So there's not a distance in place right now for, I always thought that there was, but it's
No, we
just-
don't
it's
have
state
that
level.
I'm
and then
aware
we-
of. Dave, I don't think there's any parameters that you can't ride the bus. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't know any district that does what we're doing, so I don't, I've never seen this before, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to be on the committee, but I think it's a good idea to
Yeah, look at it. You don't want me to read into that? Yes. That's very subtle, Dave.
Yeah. I can be on the committee if.
Oh, okay, great.
If no
So,
one else.
Becky and Jan, anybody else?
Well, no, now that there's two, I'll say, I think, in general, I personally think we should bus all the kids. So there's just another opinion to think
Yeah.
about while you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I think it's important to get our kids to school, maybe not at the high school level, but for elementary, middle school, I would be of the opinion to bus everybody. So
Yeah.
you can take that to your committee.
And the committee will come back to the board and get your feedback, so.
Was that a volunteer for the committee?
You can take my spot, Christina.
But no, that sounds great, so I will put you guys on that committee, and I appreciate volunteering. The next thing I have, and we're going to present it up here, Jeremy, if you want to, the student expectation activities. I'd like to go over this with the board and then see if you have any questions. Brandon and Shelley, if you want to join me up here, you sure can. So I give a lot of credit to our high school, our middle school, our police, that just how proactive they've been in formulating a revised policy on supervision at our activities and so forth. And I'll go through the highlights. We'll open it up for questions if you have questions. But some of the changes we're looking at making that I think will make a huge difference will be going to a system that you have to have your ID with you. So you'd have your ID, I should get one. You'd have your ID like this. So you'd bring your ID, you'd go through the system, it would scan it, and then it would tell you if you're allowed to go to the activity or not. So there would be 3 or 4 parameters that would say you cannot go. We would have individuals, the security people that would help with the ticket takers so they wouldn't have to make that decision, right? And we think that will make a big difference, so nobody's getting in that maybe has lost that privilege. It also allows us to expand what things we think students shouldn't get in for. So we think that's going to make a huge difference. We think we already do no student reentry. We're also going to ask elementary students that they have to be accompanied by an adult if you're at the game. I think that will, again, make a difference. I think this one, the middle school students, asking middle school students to sit in a different section, you can kind of see, Jeremy, if you could put that visual where they would be all sitting right there. Thanks, Jeremy. And I don't know if you can I can look on here. So for the board's edification, I guess, is that they basically would be moving from down here to down at the end there. And we like that idea because what's happening now, there's just too much commingling with adults in middle school, but also by moving the middle school down there, they're close to the bathrooms, they're close to concession, and we would kind of do it in a way that you can go and then you have to come back immediately and you just have to stay in this section. But it would be separate because you'd have the band next to them, and then you would have the high school students, and then you'd have the adults. And now the adults could actually have the section where the middle school kids are at, as well as the other sections they're in now. So we think that will help a lot. It will be easier to contain our middle school kids. We think with the passes, that you're not going to have kids that maybe shouldn't be there. And then also what we've really emphasized is grounds how to stay in a game. So if you are being inappropriate, you're just not going to be allowed to stay in the game. You're going to be removed right away. And making sure everybody knows those guidelines and that we're all on the same page with that. So it's in here where there'll be a pre-meeting of all their supervisors that will talk about what the expectations are at the game and what we want you to do in all these different situations. We're also looking at not allowing backpacks or large bags, prohibited from a safety perspective. That is done now in, I believe, all our schools of our size in the Des Moines area. Is it all CML, Brandon, I think?
Yeah, so actually, all of the Iowa Alliance schools, so all of the schools in our conference don't allow bags or backpacks or large bags.
Yeah.
So pretty consistent with them.
So what you're trying to do when you're coming up with revised, and you're trying not to overreact, but accomplish what you're hoping for, and also make it manageable, that you're not doing things that you can't manage. And we think this fits all those things, that we can manage this. We think it will make a big difference as far as supervision at games. We think it's a good plan. So I'll just open that part up for any questions that the board might have or thoughts.
I just have a question. So
Sure.
in this scenario, I know it happens, but like middle school students, maybe basketball, there's an A, a B, a C team. If they're playing at Evans after school and we don't allow bags,
Right.
a lot of them, they have an area where they all go and sit. Are they allowed to have their bags there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, is that we're going to be also pragmatic about it. So what I mean by that, like, we're probably not going to have this policy for swim meet or, certain activities where it doesn't make sense. It'll be for the larger activities like,
Okay.
that we expect larger crowds.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it wouldn't make any sense, like you're saying, in some of these events to do what we're saying.
I liked this. I think it was good and it seems to be well thought out. My only comment when I was reading it is on gate entry number 1, where it says all students in grades 7 through 12 must present their school ID before purchasing a ticket. Some kids aren't purchasing a ticket because they have a pass. So I think all kids should show an ID even if they're not purchasing a ticket. Or is the pass the ID and you would scan that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So their SAT is on their ID, and so it would just kind of fall into that same process. What we're trying to get at is we want the IDs to be scanned before a student purchases a ticket in case they're not allowed in, then they didn't already buy a ticket, and then we have to, refund them and, do all that. So we'll have those kids come through that security line first and then be allowed to purchase a ticket or go through the pass line.
So if I'm showing my activity pass, you're gonna scan my ID though? Because
Yes.
those kids could be on the list of non-entry too.
Yep, correct. Yep.
Okay.
And then they would just go through. They wouldn't have to go back into the purchase ticket line.
Yeah. And I understand kind of the thought unless accompanied by an adult, but in more recent games, adults have been part of the problem. Is it possible that we could have all students show an ID with or without an adult? Like, I would have no problem if my 9th grader was with me and had to have his ID scanned.
That's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that could definitely be part of the process. One of the things that we talked through with that is like non-Ottumwa students, if they come with an adult, then, they may not have an ID that we can scan. And I think as this system develops, so Des Moines Public uses basically the exact same scanning system that we're going to use. And so we could get to a point where those schools, we could add their students that can't be in games onto our scanning list as well, to maybe get to a point where we scan all student IDs, no matter, where you're from. Now that gets tricky. If we have a kid from Cardinal that, comes to a game, we're not going to have their information. And so, but yeah, no, I think Ottumwa students, we could just scan everybody probably.
So then to kind of add to that, a kid from Cardinal then couldn't come to a game without an adult. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we could get to that point, but yeah, right.
Other questions?
What are the reasons for denial of entry?
Denial of entry? Okay, yeah. Brandon, we talked about, if you want to just go through those.
Yeah, yeah. So really wanted to leave it up to the building, right? So whatever Evans designates is the reasons that you can't get into a game. If a student's currently suspended, they would be on the list. We have a few students now that are suspended from activities specifically for the year. So all of those student numbers would be listed on the spreadsheet for denial. But then attendance is something that we've talked about, right? If you don't come to school on Friday, then maybe you can't get into the game. And so really we've kind of left it up to them. Essentially the Evans admin will put the students and they'll notify them, hey, you can't come tonight type of thing. They'll put those names on there on Friday, and then as they get scanned, they'll be flagged and not allowed to enter. Like Mr. McGrory said as well, it'll flag them on reentry. So one of the challenges we've had is they leave one gate and try to come in another one. It's hard to catch that. But with this system, if an ID gets scanned twice in one night, it'll flag it. And so I think there's always gonna be things that we have to look at and adjust after we run through it on a Friday night, but I think it's gonna work pretty well.
Like Brandon said, probably if you have been in a fight in the school, you'd be on that list. We may look at the unexcused for that day, that if you're unexcused for that day, should you be allowed to go to the event that night? One of the other things we talked about is the expectation that this is a privilege to be there and it's something you can lose. And so kids that maybe have been kicked out of games, they're probably going to be on that list too, that you can't come back to, future games and so forth.
Yeah, I would hope that that's the
Yeah.
expectation. If you're asked to leave, you don't get to come to any of the rest of the games.
Right.
If you fought in school, I would say you don't get to come to any of the games.
Right.
But yeah, so it's largely up to the building administrator then.
No, well, we would use the same process at both Expectations High School and middle school. Like, these are the reasons, in elementary, these are the reasons you can't come, if that makes sense.
Okay,
I don't think we'd leave it just up to individual buildings to decide.
okay, but we don't have a hard list yet of what the expectations are, or penalties?
Yeah, I think we do, and we can certainly send that to the board.
Okay.
Those are, yeah.
I think we need to let the kids know too.
Oh, we absolutely, yeah. They'll be in servicing of kids.
Yeah, moving forward, if you fight in school, this is the penalty. If you
Yeah.
get suspended, this is the penalty.
Yeah,
Because, we could use it as a behavioral tool
absolutely.
more than just policing behavior at events also.
And I think it also, it illustrates that we are serious about this, but also it gives students, like I said, our high school general student section has been outstanding, and it really rewards kids and I think we talked too about like consequences, like why I don't have a problem if there's higher consequences if you get in a fight at a game than maybe even at school. And I'm going to give the leverage or flexibility to administrators to do that because, again, it's a public event and it's a privilege to be there. So right now we follow what the consequence is in the building if you get in a fight, for example, but I'm not sure we have to follow that. But as long as we make students aware of that.
Right.
I think that's the key.
Is this going to be at like school dances too? Same scenario?
School dances? Yeah, I think, Shelley and Brandon.
Sorry, we talked about that, especially like for the big ones like homecoming and prom, that kind of thing. We want to use this same system, just get kids in the habit of it, because we always argue with them about having their ID, and then we have to look on Power School to approve them, and we just get them in the habit of always having that ID, and it'll be much easier. So yes, we plan to use that
Okay.
at dances as well.
Any other questions on that?
I
Oh,
just
go
have
ahead.
one other
No, you're
little
fine.
comment about, it's not as big of an issue at Schaefer with the visiting section so far away from the home section, but I had mentioned this at the last meeting that I hope we feel like, I don't want to make this a policy where we're only like punishing our Ottumwa kids. Some of the behavior that I've seen from visiting kids at basketball games is horrendous.
Yeah.
And so I just hope that our staff feels like they can implement this across the board to all students and not just an Ottumwa student. Obviously, I appreciate your point about you can't scan a Des Moines kid's ID, and I understand that, but you can kick a Des Moines kid out of Evans when they're acting completely irrational and not just the Ottumwa kids.
And I give Brandon a lot of credit for being proactive for this upcoming game, is that where you have issues, like say at a football game, after the JV is played, they're standing around, and that's when you can have problems because they're not being supervised, they're standing around. So we're going to have, and they were gracious enough to do this, that they're going to leave right after their game. So you don't have that interaction between our kids and their kids. And we could look at something like that for basketball as well. I don't know if that would be, because that's where you usually run into the issue is they're finished playing, the kids, and then you're basically supervising them. And yeah. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that. Right? Anything else? So just quickly, it also gave us a chance to review our policies as far as evacuation policies. And so I just want to let the board know it was a good review for us because we now have a per se policy for lightning. We have it for also tornado, what we're going to do in tornado when we're at Schaefer. And honestly, we just didn't have policies in place for that. And then active shooter and a threat of a weapon. So we constructed those with our again, group of people, that police and fire and so forth. And I think those are good policies, and I think they'll be effective policies. So any questions about that?
When does this go into effect?
Friday. And we kind of want to see, I think we're all looking to, we know there will be some, having to manage it and evolve, but we feel really good about the general basis of it. And I really think that the card reader thing will work well and really address a lot of our issues. So next I have for the board, thanks guys. I have I gave you what the tennis courts. This is actually what the Friends of Ottumwa Parks. So they're doing the fundraiser right now, and I'll probably have them at some point come to the board and come and update you on their fundraising. But also, I thought the board would just like to see kind of some basic pictures. I think at our next board meeting, we'll probably come back to the board with more intricate designs of what the tennis courts will look like, but it will also include your bathrooms, concession, parking will be in the designs we show the board when we come back next time. But I just thought you would enjoy looking at that. And then the last thing I have, or any questions on that, on the tennis courts?
I do, just
Yeah,
one,
sure.
Mike. So does the group that's in with us, did they have anything already started, because it's kind of went so long? And I know when Bob talked to the city, it said that, well, you guys have kind of already cost us some funding we could already had.
Right.
So do they maybe have already some going?
They didn't have anything committed.
Okay,
Up until just recently. And part of the reason was they didn't have any drawings, they didn't know where it was going to be located.
it's
and so-
understandable, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Then the last thing I have is just that, and I don't want to get feedback from the board, I'm a little surprised that I'm hearing, and honestly maybe a little frustrated, is about the city putting out that they're thinking we're charging an exorbitant amount for renting. They would like to use this facility for their board meetings, or council meetings, I'm sorry. And my only contact with them has been, yeah, love to be good partners. Here's what we charge everybody, and if you'd like to do it, I sent them the link to sign up for reserving it if you'd like to. And then I'm hearing that they're concerned about the cost. If you extrapolate the cost out over maybe 15 months, you're probably looking at $4,000, $4,500 total. I don't think that's unreasonable, but if the board would like to relook at that, or if you'd like a member of the city to come and maybe ask, if we want to change that charge, I certainly can do that. I'm just kind of mystified why that has become something public, and with all the things we do as a school district with the district, or with the city and for the city, and all the revenue we bring in, I'm just surprised that I'm even having to address this, but But,
You're
so,
saying city council meetings, is that what you're saying? They want to have them here?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Is there a reason?
Yeah, because they're moving into a temporary location for like 15 months, yeah, yeah. And they don't have a place right now.
Well, maybe they could cut you some slack on the Bridgeview rent when you need to use that if, I mean, you know.
Yeah, yeah, or maybe on permits, or, just, I don't want to digress into why I think this is unusual, but, or maybe, but any questions about that, any thoughts?
I would say whatever, whatever you offered, and that's what we offer everybody else, that should be just fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're a very good partner of theirs
yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yeah. Thank you.
I agree with Dave.
Okay, thank you.
As well.
The power to waive those fees lies with the board, so if they want to come present to the board, we're
Right.
always here.
Sounds good. I will offer that to them if I get the chance. So I think that's everything I have, Morgan. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next item, board member topics.
I do have a couple of things to say, good things, actually. I don't want to teach again, but I do like still being involved with the kids. And last week or the week before, third grade had Ag Day out at the 4-H Expo. And that was a great opportunity, lots of different businesses and partners working together. And to see the faces of some of those kids when they pet a horse for the first time or a cow, it was a very good experience, and I'm grateful that we are doing field trips like that. For that one, we need to thank Lisa Duff quite a bit for that. We're also partnering with the museum, fifth grade next week or the week after. They're going out there to see an exhibit about the Native Americans that goes with their social studies. Bob Swanson needs to be commended for his work in putting up that exhibit. And then, since I love to be on committees, I'm on the Dauma Naming Committee, so if you have any ideas, just shoot them my way. So,
And on that last one, Becky, just so for edification for the board, is that I really like the process we're using. The committee seems to really have a good plan. They're going to get feedback from not only our staff, our parents, but also the community on different names. They're going to whittle it down to probably 5 names, I believe. But they're doing a nice job of looking at the history of our community to try to come up with names. So they're researching all the history, and I think it's a really good process that they're using.
I learned a few things in
Yeah.
the first meeting that I didn't know about the history, since
Yeah.
I'm not an Ottumwa native,
Right.
you know, so.
Anything else? If not, our next item is a closed session.
I make a motion, we enter closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.5, Sub 1, Sub A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This will need a roll call. Christina Shark,
Yes?
Dave Wellbrenner,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller.
Yes.
Brian Jones.
Yes.
Becky Engel.
Yes.
Jan Weetrick.
Yes.
Morgan Brown is a yes. We are in closed session.